Hi guys, this is David Negrin, host of the Script Podcast and executive director of the NYC Screenwriters Collective. I'm excited to announce that we've created a Patreon campaign for the Script. Patreon is like a Kickstarter, but it allows you to give ongoing pledges every month and receive ongoing rewards. Of course, the Script Podcast will continue to be free, but we're just asking for a little help. So please, check out all our rewards, join our inner circle. Become a patron of the Script Podcast at patreon.com/thescript.
We've just been hacked. Jesus Christ, that's Jason Bourne.
You're never gonna find any peace. Not till you admit to yourself who you really are.
This is the Script. The podcast for screenwriters by screenwriters. Deepest story analysis anywhere on the internet at the Script. We believe story moves pages, story moves product, and story moves people. I'm your host, David Negrin. Tonight, Jason Bourne. My screenwriters with me, Jeremy Engdahl Johnson and Chris Theokis.
Hello, David.
Hi, guys. Thanks for coming on.
We're back. We're all back. Thought we were gone, but we're back.
From overseas. Did
We'll
you
be gone
use
for a while
multiple
again, but yeah.
We'll probably come back again.
false identity passports to get where you are at this moment? Are we hacking it right now?
Those are different questions, I think.
Yeah, I think those are very different questions, David. But yes, I mean, when don't we use multiple false identities and hack the system?
Whose idea was it to do Jason Bourne?
Your idea.
I'm going to blame you, maybe?
You, in case we weren't being clear with their pronouns, that would be
You as in
it was
David,
David
yeah.
Negrin's idea.
Yeah,
Love
David,
the
it's all
Bourne
your
trilogy, the original one. Doug Liman directed The Identity. Tony Gilroy wrote it. Tony Gilroy also wrote The Supremacy. I think he wrote The Ultimatum. At some point, Tony Gilroy and Matt Damon had a fight, and they don't work together. But now, and then Tony Gilroy went off and wrote and directed the Aaron Cross episode of The Bourne Legacy. And now we've got the just simplified title, Jason Bourne, directed by Paul Greengrass, written by Paul Greengrass, Christopher Rouse, characters by Robert Ludlum, starring Matt Damon, Tommy Lee Jones, Alicia Vikander, Vincent Cassell, Julia Stiles for a brief instant, and ridiculous.
Breaks my heart.
Ridiculous.
Breaks my heart.
And Riz Ahmed, the newcomer, he's starring in The Night Of, the new HBO limited series with John Turturro, which is fascinating.
It is. And he, by the way, seems to have the market cornered on being kind of the little victimized bitch. That's kind of his thing, I think.
I think what we should do, I want to start off by talking about this movie in terms of what a spy thriller is supposed to be. I want to throw out some criteria that I think we should judge spy thrillers by. I want you guys to chime in, okay? Because the tradition of spy thrillers in film, going back to the original Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, The Hunt for Red October, the James Bond counts, he's one of the iconic spy thrillers. And to the more recent stuff, like The Night Manager. There's a very rich genre, and when we judge a spy thriller, I think there's definitely some cross sections that we can come up with. I think at the heart of every spy thriller is the mystery itself. Okay, there isn't one definition of a thriller is a mystery where the villain is chasing the protagonist while they're trying to solve the mystery. So it's like a mystery on steroids. A regular mystery is like Sherlock Holmes, where he's just looking at clue to clue to clue to clue. There's no pressure on him. But then in a thriller, you have a mystery, but the bad guys are trying to get you before you figure out who they are. So is it a good mystery at all? The spy craft. One of the things about spy thrillers is we like to get into the spy stuff, the gadgets, the cars, the sexy interludes, the international locations, us being transported and escaped, living vicariously with like unlimited amounts of money and government resources to kill the bad guys and save the world. The spy craft itself. Do we have new stuff, old stuff, or is it funny stuff like in Goldmember or Austin Powers? The antagonist, the spy antagonist. Who is the anti-spy? Do we know who the bad guy is? One of the conventions of the spy thrillers that sometimes the antagonist is unknown to us until later. That's part of the mystery. And then, tonight I want to ask you guys a little bit more about the Bourne, specifically the Jason Bourne conventions themselves. So what do you guys think of that stuff?
You want me to take this, Chris? First out of the gate?
Fire away.
Yeah, so I've been thinking about this because I think it's a nice way of looking at Bourne and just looking at thrillers. And I think we've gone through several eras of thrillers. And you had kind of the Cold War thriller movie, and I guess maybe I'll say spy thriller because I'm more specific than that. And you had the Bond doing the Bond, and you had kind of maybe you had the Manchurian Candidate, but you had kind of it was a little self-contained at that point, right? And then the wall goes down and things change. And in the 90s, they're trying to kind of grapple for what the spy thriller looks like. And that's why we ended up with all these kind of weird wango spy thrillers. You had Tom Clancy trying to do something other than Russia. So you had like Clear and Present Danger. So now he's doing drugs, So that was like
Patriot Games,
96 or something.
IRA.
Patriot Games. He's in Ireland. Yeah. Like, okay, let's look at different conflicts. Let's be open-minded about this. And then you had like really terrible kind of tech thrillers like Enemy of the State, where they're watching you all the time, the same movie you've seen a bunch of times, but it's this kind of the same sort of thing. And I think there was this kind of post Cold War, also post Die Hard malaise that went on, because after Die Hard came out and we had the idea that like terrorists could take on anybody, everyone was making that movie, right? And I remember in the 90s, like in high school, I was in high school, like there was this thing on HBO called Thursday Night Prime, and it was basically the same frigging like spy thriller movie every night, but they'd made it themselves, and so they felt good about it. So that all happened, and then we get to 9/11, and then we got the post 9/11 thriller, and we're going to kind of step up. We got a little bit more urgency, reality, concern, and 24, I think, defines
and Homeland
that, right? And Bourne and Homeland. Homeland's later. Like, okay. Homeland is a little meta. We'll get to that. But Bourne followed closely after 24. In fact, the first Bourne was 2002. Supremacy was 2004. Ultimatum was 2007. You've got Daniel Craig's Bonds. And so what are the characteristics of this new kind of post 9/11 spy thriller? You've got rogue states, or in some cases they're not even states. They're just like independent actors who are doing what they're going to do. So the antagonist is now kind of more detached. They were detached in a lot of Bond movies, but it felt more like somebody's owns an island and they're going to destroy the world. Whereas in this case, you don't know who they are, and there's some shadow whatever. There's a lot of high tech stuff, and we're getting into like hacking. And that's becoming kind of more a prevalent idea, that you're going to have some sort of super geek who's there, who's kind of giving you the information you need. The stakes are still the same. It's some massive annihilation thing, right? We're going to destroy the world, whatever we're going to do. So I think we've gone from, like, Bourne is like early post 9/11 spy thriller, and it's interesting seeing that now, because the jump from 2002 to 2016, it's 14 years. It's been a little bit of time. The thing I keep comparing this to is Mission Impossible, which we did a podcast on last year, and that was something that started in the 90s, and that was just seems straight up archaic by the time we actually rebooted it in 2015. This isn't quite as old, but it does, I think, have some thread-borne elements to the whole thing.
I think one of the things I noticed while you were giving us your little history there is that spy thrillers were born out of the Cold War. And it's like when you do a spy thriller where it's the America versus the Russians, that always holds true. But when you go off and you try to come up with a new set of bad guys, the same way when Indiana Jones lost the Nazis, right? Or if, Star Trek, they're not going against the Klingons, it's just not as good, right?
Yeah.
And that's why the 90s kind of sucked for spy thrillers. I mean, they were just struggling to find something. And then we found a new antagonist in the early aughts. But now I think, we can advance to this. I don't want to jump the gun, but one of the things that the other conventions that we've seen in the post 9/11 thrillers has been this heavy emphasis on tech. And the challenge with that is it gets dated so fast. And it looks like ridiculous, like within a couple years.
You mentioned Enemy of the State, and if you think of a film like, what was the Michael Mann teams up with Thor to do hacking?
Oh yeah.
Black Hat.
Black Hat.
Also known as Ass Hat.
But wasn't Black Hat suggested or implied
Confusing
by
hat.
A true story?
Great, I'm happy to hear it. But it ruined
that makes
it
it
ruined
any
it just was one of the dullest spy thrillers I've seen from one of the masters in action and sophisticated storytelling, Michael Mann. So, yeah, I think whenever you get near a computer hacking technology, unless you're Mr. Robot, you're not doing it right.
Well, and I'm glad you went there because, I think that, and I will just admit what I did this weekend, which was not that cool, but I binge watched season 2 of Mr. Robot up to this point, and I went to see Bourne, and the juxtaposition was right in front of me. And let's just say that the guys in in the Bourne latest Jason Bourne movie are not F Society.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, not only do they download CIA files to a thumb drive, but the thumb drive has encrypted written on it in giant letters. It was like a moron's guide to hacking. It was kind of amazing.
Well, that's the thing that surprised me about this one. Greengrass and everybody involved in Supremacy and Ultimatum said that everything in those two movies you could get off the shelf. The software, the hardware, everything. You could go to the spy store on. There used to be one on 33rd and not Park, but around there, and you could go into that store and buy everything that they used in the movie. And so the two elements in this, and that's one of them, the two elements in this that kind of told me that this was not Bourne Ultimatum and Supremacy level work was the thumb drive that said encrypted on it, and when Heather Lee, the Alicia, whatever her last name, character.
I still think she's a cyborg. She's a cyborg. Don't trust her.
Run. She types in, what was it? Run predictive algorithm, and then hits enter. And I thought that was the first. Oh, and then the third thing was they have an image and
enhance. That is.
When they zoom in on Julia Stiles, it's like it's Julia Stiles. We've enhanced it. It's Julia Stiles.
Look. Here's the problem.
And that to me like speaks to where the series has gone without Tony Gilroy. And as much as I love a good Jason Bourne adventure, to me it's like they were getting away from that. I don't want my images enhanced in a Jason
this
Bourne
movie stepped in every bad spy movie cliche ever. Okay, it stepped in all of them, including enhance the image, right? Like, anyone who has an iPhone who's ever tried to, zoom in on their picture, know that it's not possible to enhance it. Okay, but I think what you're saying, and Jeremy, what you're saying is that, and this was my big note, is that there were things that it was nice to be back in the Bourne universe, but this was such a dumbed down version of the Bourne series.
Series.
Everything was
point.
stupider. The mystery was completely simple. There were fewer reversals. The bad guy you could see coming a million miles away, and barely any reversals at all. You know, no big reverse ending, which is what the Bournes are known for. I mean, it just laid so flat. And so instead of, as Chris suggested diplomatically, instead of shitting all over this movie, we're going to talk a little bit about what the DNA of a good spy thriller is, and then talk about where it could have been in Jason Bourne. I want to...
But you say that, David, but I also think it had all of the stuff that we have come to expect from Bourne movies. I mean, we had a leather-faced suit who's behind the whole thing. We've got an off-the-books kind of asset that he's hired. In fact, I think his name is Asset.
Well, that I was okay with, because I don't think any of the assets in the previous movies have names, like it or at least they're not.
No, they
like
had
Bob
full
or
names.
Tim
They
or
had
Phil.
interesting names. And they more to the point, they had plans. They had machinations. Okay, to me, the superpower of Jason Bourne was that he was always 3 steps ahead of the other guys. Okay, and the other guys were very organized and they had unlimited resources. And so basically the spy plot for the Jason Bourne movies is we watch these people try to track him. We're watching the pursuit of Bourne, the thriller aspect of Bourne, him being pursued. We see their plan, and then we see Matt Damon's Bourne completely like outthink them in real time as we're doing it. And the sophistication of the previous 3 Bourne movies in those reversals and showing us how far ahead Jason Bourne was always sophisticated. And there was at least 3 or 4 reversals every act. And this one had like 2 reversals the whole movie that you didn't see coming.
Well, and then when they tried to do reversals, they kind of, I don't know that they pulled it off because, and this is hopefully a constructive comment, but like one of the things, the hallmarks of the Bourne movies is like, I'm talking to you and you know what? I can actually see you.
Yeah.
And they did that twice in this movie. Once with Bourne pulling it, and once with the Heather Lee, Alicia Vikander character pulling it. Mm-hmm. And both times it just kind of felt like, I kind of feel like I've been here.
And
before.
now what? Yeah. And now what?
It's because you have been there twice before.
Yeah.
And again, there's it's like there's nothing particularly wrong with that, but it's like if you ignore the Bourne identity because it's a different team pretty much, and you just look at Supremacy and Ultimatum, they all 3 have relatively different first acts. But the moment they break into the second act, you're pretty much watching the roller coaster ride that you took before. Yep. And there's nothing particularly wrong with that, but it kind of had a lightning in a bottle problem, I think. They had it before, and they just, for some reason, didn't have it this time. And I think part of it is there was just things about the originals, like you can buy the tech that they were using, even though 20 years from now it'll be outdated.
Well, one of the things is that Jason Bourne never relied on technology. He wasn't James Bond in the fact that he had a car and a gun and a watch. And James,
I know, but he did use
Matt Damon.
He did use
Matt
stuff.
Damon's James Bond. Yeah, he used a cell phone and he used his ingenuity.
Right. But again, it's like the listening devices that he might have used. I mean, clearly, and they did this kind of in this one as well. His cell phone microphone that he bought was clearly something he got from a store. It was the cheapest one he could find. It was, like I said, it was something that you could buy, and that just didn't seem to be the case in this film. And it's like, I don't know. I mean, it's a strange movie. I was saying to Jeremy earlier, I felt like they were shaking the rust off their joints
Yeah.
with this, waiting for the next
And
movie.
I keep thinking,
Did you notice,
You know-
Chris, that he did steal a bunch of spy technology from the conference he was at, which we've all gone
Yeah.
and like stolen or / taken swag from conferences.
Yeah.
But I'm not
Yeah.
normally used to be able to finding like tracking devices and like long distance listening cameras. Like that's
Well,
a
the
good
thing
conference.
is,
I want to
though,
go to
like-
that conference.
Well, the thing is, though, you can, though. It's like, there's
who needs Q? I'm just going to a spy conference.
You don't even need to go to a spy conference. You just like go to Target now, because they have those little what is it, the white square? It's like a tag, and so you don't lose your keys, and it's a tracking device, and they sell it like you go on your email, and it's like it's the advertisement on the side, and you want the camera that can track you, a mile away. I mean, I know we joke around and saying I can't really enhance a photo on my cell phone, but for Christ's sake, if I get an iPhone 6S, I could probably enhance it at this point. It's a big ass image.
And it was
So it's
funny
like when he
because
goes in, it's like the only thing that bothered me about that was like nobody went, "Hey, don't take that," and then he
Yeah.
didn't beat anybody up. But yeah, it's like, yeah, we don't need the spy conference. We just need I need the bodega down the street for some of this stuff now.
Yeah, it was funny watching the previews to this movie because there were two of the previews that I saw, and you guys may have seen similar different previews, involved a very kind of intimidating drone that was involved. And it was like one of them was the Da Vinci Code like sequel. I don't know what Tom Hanks is doing. And then the other was something else stupid. But it's like we got drones going. And I couldn't believe there were no drones involved in this movie. Like why weren't there drones following around?
Because they had the
try to kinda
evil
up the-
Facebook data crunching bad guys. Like that was the
that also
softest
struck me
threat
as-
I've ever heard. Like remember in The Dark Knight they came up with this technology where Batman is gonna use everybody's cell phones to track everybody's location. At least they visualized that. In this, all they did was have Riz Ahmed play this basically this tech billionaire who was stand-in for Mark Zuckerberg, who had sold out all the social media data to the government. We didn't see any of the ramifications of that. We were just supposed to think that that's dangerous. In a spy thriller, it's got to be show don't tell. You've got to like shut down a country based on the data or something. I mean,
if they shut down a country in a Bourne movie, though, I mean, if you think of the stakes in the previous Bourne films, what would happen if Bourne failed at his job? Some random guy named Jason Bourne would have died, and nobody would have cared. And so it's like if we take this information from this nebulous, social network, which I wish they'd defined a lot. This is what I was going to speak to why they didn't use drones. It seems like the social network itself is so nebulous. It's a social network. Well, okay, what does it do?
it's
How
a
does it connect
platform.
people?
I kept
Is it,
thinking of.
It knows everything. It knows everything.
Yeah.
I just kept thinking of Silicon
that
Valley. You
speaks
guys
to
have
the
been watching
writers.
Silicon Valley? They've
Yeah,
been working on
it's a
the
platform.
platform for like a whole season.
Well,
Right, and so that's the thing. It's like
It's
strikes me that
Pied
the
Piper,
writers
guys.
wanted
It's
to
Pied
tap
Piper.
into
It's
the
gonna kill us
zeitgeist.
all.
and
Yeah.
if Zuckerberg
like-
wanted to kill me, like let's say he just like did a Facebook Live event for only me, and he said, "Jeremy, I'm gonna kill you. Like I'm out for you." I would not be scared. So like as far as antagonists go, it's pretty like or even like sub or arch antagonists. Like I'm not too worried about.
I
I'm not
mean,
too worried
he
about what is it?
wasn't-
Deep dreams? Is that what it's called? Like sweet
Well,
dreams
that's
are
the
made
thing,
of
is
these. I mean, give me a break.
He wasn't
Dry
even
dreams.
He wasn't even an
Yeah,
antagonist.
yeah.
I mean, he was just like
Not
it-
pseudo
it
wet
was,
dream.
Again, it was one of these things where it's like this was stapled on to. I think in a way, at least in conception, was a much more solid story. Like, what is his attachment to Treadstone? And they've before added on things
Well,
to the Treadstone story
okay,
that
so-
weren't there in the first movie.
So Chris,
Perfectly fine.
can you give us
But
in
it's
one?
like it's like if we cut away the
Can you
deep
give us
dream
the
story,
mystery here?
all they're missing is an excuse to blow up
Can you
Las
give us the
Vegas.
mystery here in like a sentence or two?
So the mystery to me was basically like, and this ended before the third act started, was what was his father's role in Treadstone?
That was
the
it.
only interesting
That was
part.
it. My
The Deep
dad
Dream
was
thing-
involved, and
Yeah.
I want to know, did he set
what was
me
his
up?
role?
Did he put me in it, and who killed him? Or I mean, it was very thin. It was like one or two facts, and I remember he was flipping through the file, and had he got one or two pages, closer, he would have found the end. There would have been no need for the movie.
Right, and I mean, and I'm perfectly fine with that as a story. Like
know what
him
I'm saying?
finding out that his dad was involved.
I was
and,
unclear on
Yeah.
how his assassination in Beirut was. Go ahead, Chris.
like relevant. I mean, beyond so he was basically going to come to his son and say, he basically came to his son and said, "I screwed up. I've sold. This is, I can't defend this. Sorry." I was going to try.
Instead of
I'm sorry,
there's
guys.
barely anything there. At least, okay, so guys, let's see if we can walk through the very one-liners of the previous 3 Bourne movies. The Bourne identity. Guy wakes up, doesn't know who he is. People are trying to kill him. He's trying to find out who he is. He also happens to have a special set of skills, right? Like.
It's basically Jason Bourne. It goes off the grid, and people try to find him because it's actually something similar to what's in Jason Bourne the movie. Is like I think people are at cross purposes because they don't really understand what's happening.
Right. But we don't know what's happening to him. But the origin story.
Well, it's not so much that we don't know. This is one thing about the Bourne movies. There's not much of a mystery to any of these. Like we know what's going on with Jason Bourne and the Bourne identity. He's a spy who's lost his memory.
But we know as much. But we know
right. But we know that the people who are chasing him aren't necessarily trying to kill him because of they aren't necessarily trying to kill him. They're trying to bring him in, and then when they realize he's not going to be brought in, then they try to kill him because he is an agent out to kill the African leader Mombosi, if I remember correctly. The second movie is Bourne is framed for a terrorist attack in Germany, and Dr. McCoy from the latest version of Star Trek is sent to kill him. And then his girlfriend is killed, and he has to go find out why people were trying to kill him. And then finally, Bourne Ultimatum is that a journalist has unearthed information about a similar program to Treadstone, and he is because of who he is, Jason Bourne is attached to it, and then he's chased down by the CIA. Except in Ultimatum, he has an eventual ally within the CIA itself, who is not Julia Stiles' character Nikki.
Right, we get Joan Allen's character, who eventually
Joan Allen
finally gets to be his friend, and Alicia Vikander kind of stood in for Joan Allen in this, right? She sort of comes over to his side, but
was
barely.
it Pamela Lundy? Is that the name of the character?
Thank you.
Something Lundy. Yeah.
So, all right. So that's what we've got is that the plots of the Bourne films are him solving a mystery on the run. That's fine. That's a spy thriller. But what we didn't get was the characteristic Bourne is smarter than everybody else stuff. All he did was, at one point he listened in on one of their headsets to get information. He went to a hacker at this point to decrypt the files. It's a lot less. It's a lot more passive than Jason Bourne has been in the past.
It was very Indiana Jones and Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. You're right.
I know. But then, so that we didn't get. Another thing we didn't get that was very much one of my favorite parts of the Bourne films were those heavy, fist fight sequences. Those fight sequences where Jason Bourne is kicking ass, they spent a lot of time,
Yeah.
Paul Greengrass particularly in the second and third movie, choreographing really badass fight scenes that felt real. They were scary, and they weren't choppy edited together. Fast forward to Jason Bourne, he took the easy way out. All of these fight scenes were very cookie cutter. They were super edited. They didn't have any of the realism. I mean, I remember that one fight scene.
There was one where he jumped out and he fell 5 stories, and it was whereas before they might have done a very practical effect and erased the safety equipment with the computer. That one scene where he falls 5 stories, it's clearly all CG.
Yeah.
And not even great CG.
Remember that Bourne scene? It must have been Supremacy, where he jumps across a building through a window and the cameraman goes with him, right?
Yeah, that's what I mean. That was my first thought. Like, they really did that.
And then there was a really heavy fight scene between him and one of the other bad guys where he beats the crap out of him in a corner in like a small area in a shower. And there was such a sense that Jason Bourne was emotionally like taxed by the killing of this person, because it was choreographed so well, and it wasn't edited choppy. It wasn't just shaky camera edit. It was emotional, because that was part of the theme, is that Jason Bourne didn't want to accept that he was a killer, and that
right.
scene captures the theme of what Jason Bourne's character is going through, and that's the kind of stuff that's missing in this new one. This one, it was a little, it wasn't as thoughtful a spy thriller. So that's the second thing I think this was missing.
But David, like on that point, like I thought the best fight scenes were in the first act, and it was. It was, for some reason, he is working as some sort of, like, in this movie, like, he's working as some sort of prize fighter. And it's not really ever explained at any point, but, he's going to, like, down a guy with one punch. That
was so ridiculous.
It was ridiculous, but I'm just saying, like, for some stupid reason, the only thing he can do is get in fights with like random ass dudes.
It made me think of Rambo 3, where Rambo is stick fighting in Southeast Asia for the monks, for money.
I think that comparison is apt.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I mean, Jason Bourne doesn't have to beat people up for cash. He's like got a genius level IQ. He could go be a programmer for Amazon or something. I don't know. Like,
yeah, he could go be a cloud programmer, or just like go work for F Society or something and do something cool. Like he does not need to like get in fist fights with like Polish dudes.
He should really, what he should have done is taken over like the ski-doo business that his girlfriend opened up at the end of the first movie.
That was awesome. Yeah, so at least we had a real love story in the first 3 Bourne movies, right? The first movie he followed.
First 2, and only the first. And then 1 act.
Yeah, but then the third movie, it's about revenge because she died.
Yeah, the second movie is the one that's about revenge because she died. She dies because she gets killed. He's like, I gotta go find out what's going on.
Is that what they were trying to reprise here with killing off?
Yep. Well, yeah.
Nikki. They were trying to. It doesn't work.
Oh, I mean,
you can't kill somebody off in the first act and have us care about it. You know what?
Well, I think they were planning on. We followed this character for 3 previous movies. We have a relatively, and it's clear in the third movie that he and Nikki did have something back when he was David Webb.
This should be called. This should be called the Game of Thrones rule. You got to follow somebody for 9 episodes before you can kill them off, and we care about them. Game of Thrones does that expertly. We know somebody's going to die episode 9. And we've been following them, not just last season, but recently. And, this Bourne movie is 9 years after the last one. You almost forget she's in it, right? You almost forget you know, shh.
Well, she's the only other survivor through all the movies.
And by the way,
yeah.
it's not 9 years since the last Bourne movie. The last Bourne movie was 2012.
Sorry, 9 years since
and it was
since the original
Yeah,
Bourne.
but by the way, just while we're talking about it, like Jeremy Renner is an amazing actor and should get nothing but love. But you know what? He's got a very Timothy Dalton feel to him as Jason Bourne. Or whoever the Bourne he was who played.
Aaron Cross.
Yeah,
he's getting a movie next year supposedly, or like in 2 years there's supposed to be another Bourne Legacy movie.
So
David, who did he play in the Avengers movie when he was like the archer who had the weird dysfunctional family?
Hawkeye.
Hawkeye.
Yeah, this is like the Bourne role, like, and the Hawkeye role. Like, we'll compare which one was worse for his career, but you know, we'll see. He's a great actor who's doing strange jobs.
You know, I actually think the thing about Jeremy Renner is that he's not a leading man. He's more of a character actor. And after his success in The Hurt Locker, which was an unlikely success, he was propelled into, you know, first place into A-list, and they tried to get him leading man stuff. And he's not a leading man. He's a great character actor. So for me, he doesn't work as a Tom Cruise or a Matt Damon type. But
And Hawkeye is never going to get a movie. I mean, let's be honest.
I mean,
in this market, Hawkeye is going to get a movie.
I'm sure.
Be like
Jeremy Renner.
Full House meets Archery.
I'm sure Jeremy Renner was sitting in the Avengers movie theater with his parents, so embarrassed at the end of that movie. He's like, "No, Ma, I swear I was in this."
Yeah. Oh, poor Jeremy Renner.
So what else does a spy thriller have that we may or may not have had in Jason Bourne tonight, guys? A love story. We were talking about the love story, right? Like a femme fatale situation.
If you think of you mentioned earlier Tinker Tailor. I mean, I don't know. I kind of look at spy thrillers as on a spectrum, and not like a linear spectrum, but you know, on one end you have Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, and on the other end you have, you know, the James Bond films, and then somewhere in there you have Triple X.
I love Triple X, man. I'm a fan.
Did you just invoke Triple X?
Yeah, that was kind of. I'm awesome. A fan of Xander Cage. I'm a fan of Xander Cage.
The first Triple X makes a point. The first Triple X makes a point of killing James Bond, as it were, like a facsimile James Bond, saying this is a spy thriller that isn't like James Bond. And right in the middle between Tinker Tailor and James Bond, the worst excesses of James Bond, or maybe the not worst, I think sits the Bourne series, because Tinker Tailor's like real spycraft, almost to the point of being a documentary.
Yeah.
You know, like they sit around, they make some phone calls, they talk to people, they read through files, they go and talk to somebody at a party and say, you know, how's your government treating you? You want to work for us? And then on the other end, you have James Bond, where there's gadgets and they're blowing, stuff up and there's
super stylized.
And
yeah,
there's super stylized. And so it's like the Bourne series, including, I haven't seen the Legacy, and I don't want to speak to it because it didn't have Jason Bourne in it.
It's not speaking to you either. Don't worry.
Yeah, thank you. But they, I think, fit comfortably right in the middle of that.
Yeah, I think this is a more intelligent. I think
so,
it's an intelligent action spy movie. It's.
But to your point about like having a love interest, I mean, Tinker Tailor, in fact, because that's part of a trilogy of stories, there isn't a love interest in that because all the characters are of retirement age.
There is a love story between the main guy and his wife, and then the other agent. The other agent was sleeping with his wife, and that's how he gets to him.
Yeah, but I mean, to me, that wasn't played as like a typical love story. Like I'm trying to get this girl back. I mean, it's basically this guy is going to head up MI6, going, my marriage isn't.
So, guys, I would be remiss if in this spectrum of spy films, I did not bring up my favorite spy movie, which is 2001's Spy Game by Tony Scott.
Oh, right, with Brad Pitt and Robert Redford.
That is one of the best, most underrated spy movies ever. It's phenomenal, and it came out something like a month after 9/11, and so no one's going to the theaters, ruined its like box office, like nobody wanted to see anything like that. But that is a great spy thriller that is both placed in the real world, Vietnam, Lebanon, and then Bosnia, in real history. It has spycraft and training and action sequences, and it has a love story. It gets all these things done, and the mystery in it is amazing. There's this awesome mystery going on in the background the whole time, and there's a mystery and a B mystery. It's beautifully done. Spy Game is an example of an intelligent action. It's got it all, and it just shows that you can get it all. Mic drop. Bam.
Amen.
You took care of it right there.
Yeah.
It's over.
It's over.
Sorry. And what the hell, David?
Sorry about that.
So, by the way, like, can we just dig into this Alicia Vikander, Heather Lee character? I loved her in this movie. I loved her in Ex Machina. There seems to be kind of a need for the competent, open-minded female who sees Bourne for what he is. That's
I like that.
That's a theme of this, and I like that she was kind of playing both sides, and it was interesting. I mean,
they could have taken it so much
where
further.
do we go from there?
Couldn't they have taken it a lot further?
They could, and they will, because that was the whole grounds for their sequel. That's clearly the next movie, and I guess that's why I'm curious. From your guys' perspective, it's
that's a classic case of, we don't think we can write well enough, so we're going to save some of our good ideas for the sequel. That's ridiculous. There was not nearly enough of the Heather Lee defying the superiors, going against the upper levels, going against the U.S. Marshals. What's his name?
Tommy Lee Jones,
right? He
talking about The Fugitive?
Well, The Fugitive is a classic thriller.
And ultimately, she falls into line. I mean, ultimately, she doesn't go against them. She pretends to with Bourne. She's like, "Here's the star, and you can come in anytime, and we can do stuff together." And then she's like, just had a conversation where she's like, "I'm going to sell him out."
That should have happened.
He catches her calling him out.
That was the weakest. That was the weakest reversal I've ever seen. Oops, I have you on video saying something, bullshitting your superior. Of course, that's what she would have said to him anyway. But guys, in terms of screenwriting, that relationship, that bond, should have happened at our midpoint. The whole second half of the movie should have been her defying her superiors, working with Bond, or maybe not working with Bond, Bourne, excuse me, to gain. Access to this Facebook guy, and to save him or help not save him, and it didn't happen. They waited till the third act for them to team up, and that's, I don't know, that didn't work for me.
Yeah, and we find out they're Stanford classmates.
That's what was that about? Guys. What was that about?
Good work for that.
Does that mean they used to bang at like frat parties? Like, how did that play into the movie?
She didn't bang him.
No,
she's all for you.
So my first thought when I saw her character was she's taking Nikki's place, mainly because of her age.
Yeah.
And then when she became like the head of one of the operations, that lost me. She's a fine actress. I liked her in Ex Machina as well, but I thought that she was kind of miscast in this, and so it took me out of certain aspects of the story.
She didn't have the. She doesn't. She didn't have the gravitas.
Killing Nikki and not. Yeah, totally. She didn't have it, and then it's nothing against her. It's just maybe she'll have it in 10 years.
Well, that's why you put a Tommy Lee Jones in,
for the role.
Or you put a Joan Allen in. People who are who was the other actor?
But you give that character's, you make that character 10 years older, able to take on that job. And the character as concept is fine. It's the casting decision there that I think was not necessarily suspect, but
yeah,
it kind of let the role down.
In Ultimatum, we had David Strathairn, right? he's got the gravitas for that situation. Unfortunate.
And so it's like, and the thing about leading this into other movies, I mean, because of its success this weekend, there are going to be other ones. I'm almost certain, and hopefully they will be a step up again. But to me, killing Nikki at all, regardless of where it happens in the story, the only character you really have left is Pamela Lundy, Joan Allen's character, to have any attachment to the previous trilogy. And the moment Nikki died, to me, there was a loss. There was like no footing anymore. There wasn't like solid ground for the character to walk on.
There doesn't
seem to be much reason for me to want to come back, because it's like now it's this. It doesn't feel as grounded in terms
Chris,
of the story,
one of the things I
Treadstone.
wanted was they got me at a moment towards the end where they convinced us that Bourne wanted to come back and be an agent again, and then we have Heather Lee asking him to come back, and he's like, I'll think about it. And they had me thinking, in the future, are they turning this into like an American James Bond situation where he's actually going to work for the CIA?
Yeah.
That could be a really interesting turn for at least one movie until he goes rogue again. That would be really interesting.
Yeah, and I think that's what they did with the books, is that he does go back. And these are, Robert Ludlum has passed away, and it's like the series continues on. And I think that is what's happened with the books. I'm saying that without having read a single one of them.
Yeah, so, I mean, we had no heart in this film. I really wanted to care about somebody. I was hoping that, they've been nudging in the last few movies about a relationship between Nikki and Jason Bourne, because... And they just killed her off before he ever...
Yeah, they blew that. Like, they don't kill her in the first act. Kill her at the end of the second act. Low point. That's why we have a low point. Yeah. That's why we have a Dark Night of the Soul, so that you can really feel it. But it's like they just kind of plugged it in thinking we'll deal with it later, or like it'll all be more important later. It's not. It's
they didn't even use it.
Don't kill that character.
They didn't use it as a revenge plot or anything. They just used it as yet another obstacle that he had to get over, and it was not just an obstacle. It was a bigger deal than that, and they wasted that. I mean, the idea, if they'd taken these stories further, the one where Jason Bourne is a patriot, and something about the way his father was involved in the program pulled him back in, almost in a Darth Vader way, and says, you know what, I'm going to pick up where my father left off. And now that Tommy Lee Jones is dead and Vikander's in charge, and maybe that would be a really interesting plot. And it would be really cool if at the same time Nikki's not dead and Nikki stays a rogue agent, right? Jason Bourne becomes CIA again, and then Nikki's on the outside. Next movie, you've got Nikki's the rogue agent, and he's got a
well, I'm sorry to
the Nikki ultimatum,
Julia Stiles fantasies, but she's dead. and so the idea that Jason Bourne's going to come back in the house, it's clearly on the table.
I've loved Julia since Save the Last Dance, okay? 2001. She's the shit.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't need to quote the year. We all remember.
I mean, how could we not?
All right.
She also took a turn at Dexter since all this happened.
Is that right?
I mean, give me a break.
Yeah.
And she had her own TV show for a while.
She went to Columbia. I saw her on the one train a couple times. I used to go to the Upper West Side.
We all love her. We can agree that everyone loves her.
She's likable.
Yeah, I think so.
And she's dead, shot off the back.
Yeah. God
okay,
damn it.
can we...
You know who I saw on the subway, speaking of? I saw Rami Malek on the subway one day.
He's cool.
Mr. Robot.
How'd that go? Did he look at you really intensely as if he was high on morphine or Adderall?
Did he see you?
No,
did he really see you?
He was dressed
or was
up.
this a dream?
He had a slacks and button-down shirt on. His
how do you know?
He is a very small
how do you know
human
he
being.
wasn't
like sneeze and he'd fall over. This was after Mr. Robot.
Yeah, but how do you know he wasn't a figment of your imagination?
Yeah, probably. Yeah. He did talk to me. He told me to go and hack eCore.
Jeremy, have you had any celebrity sightings lately? This is what this podcast has turned into.
Oh, well, if you want me to go on,
this is what we got. This is what Jason Bourne has taken us to.
Hang on.
I saw some famous person in New York City the other day. So okay, back to my checklist. How about antagonist? Okay, spy bad guy. Vincent Cassel plays Asset. Discuss.
Well, first off, he wasn't like the villain. I mean, he was an extension of the antagonist. Tommy Lee Jones's character was clearly the antagonist.
Okay, you make a good point.
He was just the stormtrooper.
But
Vincent,
really Vincent Cassel is an actor of like great magnitude. I thought they were gonna do something with him. All they did is have him brood and like say a few words here and there and take some shots. That guy had a huge role in Ocean's 12. Was it Ocean's 12? That was hilarious. He was great in that role, and I thought between him and Tommy Lee Jones, both serious actors given very little to do in this film.
I mean, this is the man who is in what's it called? One of the Shrek movies. But he's in Black Swan. You're right. I mean, he's a capital A actor. But he probably walked away with a big paycheck.
That was this movie. This whole movie was a paycheck for Matt Damon, a paycheck for Paul Greengrass. It was just Tommy Lee Jones, by the way, is pseudo retired as an actor. I thought he wasn't doing any more roles. There's conversations about like his health or he's just really elderly. The fact that he showed up in this movie at all, he's just like in the control room and then he's sitting in a seat, like total paycheck scenario. And
I gotta say, like the Cassell role was shit. Let's just agree it was shit. It's like there's someone in a corner or in an angle or who's got some promontory who's a sniper who's gonna kill someone. Like that's stupid. Like that was really frigging dumb. So like he's up there, he's gonna do.
The one cool part was they finally put the sniper scope feed into the control room. One of the that was nice. It was nice that you could be spying on someone. You could be like using your perv glasses and looking through a window, and like the CIA could see. It's like everyone can see the perv glasses.
And you know where you can get that scope? At Walmart.
At a convention, at a spy convention.
Pick it up at the convention, just like pocket the swag.
My point is, it's not spy tech. Like seriously, it's a GoPro with Wi-Fi. None of this stuff is.
But the control room, the command center.
This is the stuff you
the
get
command
down the block.
center is a convention of the Bourne movies, and at least in that one instance, they innovated on one of the conventions of the Bourne movies, and that's about all. That's about all I got.
I'll give one thing to the Bourne movies in general. Is that if we go with Save the Cat, and you talk about the debate section of a story, and typically when we think of like somebody being convinced or trying to convince someone else to go on the adventure with them, we typically think about talking. And they typically use action. Like the debate in this was the chase through Athens.
Yeah.
The debate in Supremacy was the car chase in India. I kind of sort of forget the debate in Ultimatum and in Identity. But the greater point here is that they use action to kind of put him, like people are chasing me. They're trying to kill me clearly because there's a bunch of gunfire and it's directed
right. And
at
the
me.
debate is, the internal debate is, do I just run and escape, or do I go towards the danger to figure out the mystery?
And for all the faults of Jason Bourne, I thought that was a pretty good debate, because it does ultimately end. I like it that it ends like with him. Like, do I leave that key that Nikki has so unceremoniously dropped now that she's been shot several times, or do I just go the other way and leave it? And I mean, it's really nice that all he has to do is the break into Act 2 is he reaches and grabs something.
That's it.
At least that's
that
the
was
way
a
I
great
read
break
it.
into 2. It's active. She's dead. I mean, I agree with Jeremy. They should have saved that.
Which
they should have
sucks
saved
that
that
she's
for the All Is Lost. But I gotta say, all in all, that Athens set piece was elaborate. So many extras, so many people, and it was so passive. There was very little happening. It was just him. Can they see him?
Well,
where is he? He's getting away. But we didn't see any of those great Jason Bourne reversals where, you know, he sends them in one direction and he goes another one. Next thing you know, he's standing above them.
I'm gonna disagree with you a little bit on that because it felt like they set it up, and you know he's grabbing Molotov cocktails and like breaking
That
on
was
the ground.
awesome. That was
I
cool.
like that one. The
It's like
Molotov
when he just-
cocktail.
It's great cover for anything, and it's also kind of hilarious that the whole scene is degenerating so bad that like this is what we're resigned to.
Yeah. All right. Any other Bourne conventions that you saw in this iteration of Jason Bourne that you thought were done well or not well enough? Conventions of the Bourne movies.
Go ahead, Jeremy.
David, it's a good question. And I think the main thing we want to know is what's next.
Yeah.
And I don't think that what's next happens in Bourne, because I think Bourne is it's a tired convention that they're like trotting out again, and that's good. If they want to reinvent Bourne, like, you know, and I like Jeremy Renner. I kind of disagree with you. I think he could be a lead actor, but maybe not in the wake of Matt Damon. But if you figured out a way to like take this concept to the next level, like there's so many personalities who have been programmed the way that Jason has been. So if we can find out a way to like come up with a new identity for Bourne, I can see that happening. And I'm okay with that. I would be happy to be still seeing Bourne movies, you know, 10 years from now.
It would be cool with you if Matt
I would be
Matt
too.
Damon finds another file and it turns out he is a secret identity, and in it he owns a zoo with Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah.
No, that's a different movie, and that was a movie that maybe needed to be making or maybe didn't. So, but I think
love
that the
Cameron
original
Crowe.
instinct, like
I
anytime,
love Cameron Crowe
anytime
and I
you've
love
got somebody-
roadies. I love roadies. I want it on the record.
Yeah. Anytime that you've got somebody who has held on too long, and any kind of like alpha relationship, like it's time to move on. So, like, we could do another Bourne movie with Alicia Vikander, and that'd be cool, but it would kind of actually suck. So let's just if we're gonna continue moving the Bourne thing, let's find a way to kind of do derivative and move on.
You know,
from here.
Matt Damon, speaking of other spy movies, Matt Damon was in Syriana. Did you guys see Syriana?
He was also
Brilliant.
Yeah, that was
in
great.
the Green Zone.
Brilliant spy. Yeah, in the Green Zone. So Syriana was a Stephen Gaghan film, written and directed. He did. Stephen Gaghan also wrote the drug movie. What was it called? Traffic. Yes, he also wrote Traffic. And Matt Damon had a role in Syriana and several scenes that he read because Gaghan was writing and directing it. It was his first directing assignment. Matt Damon read a scene, thought it was good but not great, and he sent it back to Gaghan and said, "No, I need a better story." And then Gaghan wrote a really great scene. He wrote this scene where Matt Damon tells off this Arab sheik in the desert and tells him how he should run his kingdom. And you know, Matt Damon used to look at a script and say, "This is not good enough." And Jason Bourne, the new movie, I can tell he didn't do that. You know?
Yeah, but he's friends with
Yeah,
Paul
they're
Greengrass,
homies.
and he probably was like,
They're
yeah, let's
homies,
do
and they
this.
needed to. Unfortunately, they made Green Zone together, which was essentially Jason Bourne in
Bourne
Iraq,
in Iraq.
and that movie was fabulous. That was extremely well done, but it was not well received because it was at a time where there were too many movies about the war, and people want to be escaped when they think about these things. So maybe they were just making their money back from Green Zone, which everyone should see. Last comments, questions, guys. We'll go around one more, one up, one down, or summaries, or I don't know any.
You know, I do hope they do another one. I hope they do a better job. This time, kind of maybe make amends with Tony Gilroy and bring him back, because he clearly did bring something to the table with it. And also in my neighborhood, Olivia Wilde, Fisher Stevens, and Gabby Hoffman regularly go to the playground that I take my kids, if we're going to name drop celebrities.
Cool. Jeremy, you see any celebs in your neighborhood?
I see them all the time because everybody wants to hang out on Flatbush.
Yeah.
But that said, I think the main thing is that I think we're just kind of waiting for what the next thing is. And I think these massive franchises that cover more than a decade, I think they're challenged. And especially when you have a spy thriller, because you're dealing with the idea that, you know, your original pretense may not work.
But
so,
even
I think we're out of date.
The Marvel movies know that they need to tell you, they need to tease the next episode. Every episode of scripted television and every season finale knows they've got to tease the next episode. Do we get a good enough tease in this film?
No, I don't think we did, because I think that, like, the concept is a little weak at this point. Like, we've kind of lost.
I honestly
lost
think
track of it.
they kind of tried to shut it down.
They're going to do another one, though.
You think,
you
you think this
know
was
they're gonna
it?
do
You
another
think
one.
this was they were thinking, all right, this is it for Jason Bourne?
My feeling is that, because as weak as we may feel the reveal with the video at the end is, it just feels like they shut down all of the avenues to at least continue the Treadstone story. And I won't lie. I mean, if there's another Jason Bourne movie, I'm going to go and pay my money, and I'm going to sit and see it, and I'm going to get my fix. But I mean, I guess the reason I show up is to see how the Treadstone story is playing out. And the moment you say, "Yeah, my dad did it," is the moment you've pretty much ended the story. And once you've resolved that, anyway. And so, you know, if he teams up with Heather Lee and they fight, I don't know, terrorists, there just isn't the same kind of personal connection to it. And so just immediately killing Nikki, like I said, who was throughout the entire series until now, it just feels like they're shutting the door on it.
And I'll reference one of the things one of you guys said, is that Jason Bourne is always on the run. He's never in the CIA, right? So it's not a Jack Ryan situation where he can start as an analyst and then become a senior analyst and then become head of the CIA and then become president of the United States. Like that, you know, at least has some place for him to go.
But it's, I mean, like, that's a good point to make, because we are contemplating a Kiefer Sutherland movie where he is president of the United States, where he wasn't actually in the cabinet. He was just the guy who was out in, like, South Dakota in some bunker, and everyone else got killed.
Designated survivor. That's a classic case of somebody in Hollywood read one article in the New York Times, and they're like, "Wow, this is a cool. I didn't know there was a designated survivor. Let's make a whole fucking series about that."
But that's stupid. Like,
so
we can agree
stupid.
that's stupid, right? But he's also playing off the fact that he's Jack Bauer, and that's why we care about it. And that's, I think, the part that's a little problematic about this is that
Isn't that the storyline from Battlestar Galactica?
It sounds like
The
it.
series?
It's, you know, it's probably the
all the people
Battlestone.
above the president,
without fighters and space and clones and stuff. Yeah, it's just gonna be
Right.
Jack Bauer's a wimp.
But like this idea that like anyone can slot into things. I mean that's very appealing for people, but it's kind of stupid. So,
all right,
we'll see. I mean, Jason Bourne may be president. We might have the Bourne presidency.
the Bourne candidacy, the Bourne
candidacy, the Bourne presidency, the Bourne, diplomacy, the Bourne like blah blah blah. Who cares?
The Bourne ambassadorship to the Bahamas. Yeah, okay. Guys, thank you very much. This is the script. The script's produced by David Negrin and edited by Zoe Alexander. I want to thank Chris Theokis and Jeremy Engdahl Johnson. Join our Facebook page by searching for NYC Screenwriters Collective. Follow us on Twitter @ScriptFeed. You can support the Script Podcast by giving us a positive review on iTunes or by going to patreon.com/thescript.